Well, greetings, everyone. We are now starting our latest Kninja Knowledge webinar, and welcome, everyone. It is 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon what part of the world you're joining us from. And today we have a very special guest with us, actually a guest that was suggested to us that we needed to get this guy on here. So you know, I guess it's be careful what you wish for, because he's now here, and we're actually pretty excited about it. Before we do get started, though, what I would like to do is perhaps let's just check out and make sure that our chat box is working as it should be. So if you wouldn't mind just typing in your first name and perhaps what part of the country or world that you're in, and so we can just make sure that is working. Okay, so Paul from BC, Deb from Manitoba, Christine from Regina, so a very Canadian contingent at the moment. Shelley from Ontario. Okay, so we've got west to the central, all represented here. Okay, that's great. And we're going to wait. We've still got people coming in. So I am going to wait just a couple of minutes before we actually get started. Oh, hi, Afsana from Toronto. So Afsana, you actually typed it into the Q&A box. So if you just move over, I think the chat box is one more over, and then we'll be able to converse. We will have time at the end for Q&A, but please, if you have a question at any time during our webinar, please just type it into the chat box, and we'll certainly try to answer that as best we can. Kevin has promised us he is all-knowing, all-seeing, and so that should be good. And we've already got a couple. Okay, there we go. Got that straightened out. So anyway, we've got our housekeeping straightened out. And we're joined today with Kevin Wallace from Pluto. And we've known Kevin a little while, but I actually met him in person for the first time at, I guess, the IPBC Ignite conference back in September. And he was gracious enough at that time not to tell us that we were crazy when we asked him if he would be on one of our webinars. We are probably crazy, but he still agreed to be on one of the webinars, so it was all good. And so you guys who've attended these before, you know the format, and we're going to keep it very informal, conversational. We're going to try to learn a little bit about Kevin, his journey, a little bit about Pluto, and I'm sure you guys are going to have some questions for Kevin about Pluto. And so why don't we get started then? So without further ado, Kevin, welcome to the Kninja Knowledge webinar, and thank you for agreeing to join us.
Thank you for having me. Thanks, Steve. And yeah, right off the top, I just wanted to congratulate you guys on being named a Firm of the Future finalist for the world, and of course, Canada's Firm of the Future. That's really awesome to see.
Well, thank you very much. We're very excited about that. I think as we get now closer to QB Connect San Jose, it's starting to hit home a little more than it was before. Yeah. So everybody's pretty excited. We're fortunate. We're going to be taking down a couple of our team members, and one of them is here with us now, Andrea. And I asked Andrea to be on the webinar with us because she's a huge fan of Pluto. Definitely. And is one of our certified experts here. So I thought, okay, so if you don't know the answer, Kevin, and I don't know the answer, exactly. I'm sure Andrea will. So I figured that that would work for everybody.
Yeah.
And thank you very much for your support and help during our social media campaign to try and get those votes out there. We'll see how that worked out when next Wednesday morning, I guess, is the official. But anyway, let's get back to the purpose of our webinar here. So maybe if you could, perhaps we'll start out and maybe just share a little bit with us about your journey. How did you get to where you are right now?
Yeah. I don't know how much time do we have?
Just keep talking. It's all good.
Yeah, this is about one of my favorite topics, which is me. So if I start let me know. But yeah, I mean, as you mentioned earlier, I did science in university. That's my background when it comes to academics. So really didn't prepare me quite for a career in fintech. But I think I can track that back to growing up. My parents ran their own business. So I spent a lot of weekends and a lot of summer days basically helping out with that business. So I kind of have firsthand experience with, what it takes, the ups and downs, the crazy processes. I literally remember sitting at the kitchen table and taking receipts, piles of receipts, and entering them into some, accounting software, basically doing data entry. So that kind of started my interest in kind of the inner workings of businesses and my curiosity when it comes to the trials and tribulations that other businesses and business owners face. So I think that's kind of what led me in that direction as opposed to science after, despite going to university for that. So after that, I kind of got into the payment space by working in merchant processing. So we were working with businesses across the US, across Canada, and providing merchant processing services. And what I realized then is what I love is talking to businesses and hearing their stories and kind of the variety and diversity that goes with that. And the cool thing about payments is that it's an integral part of every company or business, regardless of size, location, vertical. And so that's what I like. The problem with merchant processing, though, really just comes down to rates and volume, and it wasn't really solving a problem for some of my clients. And that's kind of what I was looking for is to be able to actually solve the problem and be part of something that's disruptive. So that's kind of what led me in the direction of the startup and the fintech space. Spent some time in Silicon Valley. Came back to Toronto. The weather was too nice there. I didn't know how to talk. As a Canadian, I was lost. So of course, I came back to Toronto and met with the team at Pluto. And what right away resonated with me and what struck me with them is their kind of commitment to solving a real world problem with payments. So this is something, and this is kind of the story of Pluto, is our founders prior to running Pluto, they actually ran their own small business or their own business. And I think they found that they were spending so much time as the business grew on all of these processes and payment processing and going to the bank and processing wires that it was kind of taking them away from what they were passionate about. So that's kind of what led to the idea of Pluto and really the pursuit of actually solving a problem that businesses everywhere face. I mean, we're using technology that was built by banks in the 70s. And meanwhile, we're using all of this other technology in other parts of our business and life that is so much further when it comes further along. So I recognized that was a problem. I really wanted to be part of it. And that's kind of what has led me to here, being part of Pluto for just over 2 years.
Cool. It's, I find it really interesting how many of the guests that we've had on our Kninja Knowledge webinar series, how many of them, their parents had a small business.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if there's a correlation there at all, but it just, right. It really is fascinating. I mean, the majority of them have come from a small business owner family, if you will. So
yeah, well, I think, yeah, you kind of have that, the other side visibility into what actually is happening, and that it's, it's not just a business, it's real people that are doing this every day, and there's ups and downs, and it takes so much out of you. But I think running a business can be so rewarding. So it's really so interesting to me, and I think that's probably what that commonality with people that are part of that.
Yeah, well, that's cool. Okay, so when you're not working, and I'm sure you're working all the time.
Yeah.
But on the the odd little bit of time when you're not, what do you like to do when you're away from the office?
Good question. Spare time. So I have a dog named Dewey that I answer to. So my spare time, and then I actually, one of the interesting things I did in the last year was during the summer, I actually lived on a houseboat in Toronto. So I was totally down in a harbor, living on a houseboat. So when I wasn't at the office, I was actually there. And again, that was kind of an interesting experience that was outside of the norm for me. So yeah, that's kind of what takes up a lot of my spare time is things like that.
Cool. Good. And what kind of dog do you have?
He's a Boston Terrier.
Cool.
So yeah, so very energetic.
Yeah.
Has his own agenda. It's his world. I'm just living in it. That type of stuff.
Yeah, no, we understand completely. There's a lot of dog lovers here, and you may have guessed from our social media activity, we have a boxer who rules our house. So
right. Yeah.
Understand completely. So.
Yeah.
Now, could you perhaps now tell us a little bit about Pluto, and what specifically is your role within the company?
Yeah. So Pluto, for anybody that's not as familiar with what we do, is we're a payment platform. Our goal is to really make it easy for businesses to both send and receive payments. So you can send payments, anywhere domestically, internationally. Everything is kind of managed from one hub, and it ties into your accounting software, so you never have to do that double entry. You never have to, go back and reconcile things. Everything is tied into your accounting software. So our product is really meant to make payments really easy and completely replace the need to send paper checks, print, sign, put in an envelope, mail, have zero visibility into where the payments are. So that's the problem with checks. We completely replace that workflow. And also, wire payments. So if you're paying anyone internationally or even receiving payments from, your customer in the US, you can easily do that through Pluto without having to go to the bank and process wires. So that's basically what we do, is we really streamline and automate the payment side of things. What I do is I work directly with businesses and accountant and bookkeeping firms who use Pluto in order to streamline those payments. So I help with, getting businesses set up, making sure that onboarding is easy for them, and then helping out along the way as far as making sure that bookkeeping firms that are using Pluto have access to, support and account management and all of the materials and assets and training guides that they need when it comes to making sure their customers and their clients are happy with Pluto. So that's kind of what I do here.
And you have made it easy. I know I've been on this side of it, and you have been amazing helping us get our clients all set up, ready to go, and live in no time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we know that that part of it is so important, especially when you're a bookkeeper, you're adding a client. You want to make sure that first experience is super smooth, because you might be an expert with Pluto, but the client, they're just signing in. So that's so important to you guys as well as us. So that's part of why I'm here.
Okay. Terrific. We do have a question from Deborah. Okay, and this is my ignorance here. I'm not sure I understand the question, so hopefully you do. Does Pluto only do ACH? Do they have the ability to pay by check, as some small vendor businesses still only accept checks for payment?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So right now, as far as payables, we do ACH payments. So we don't actually send paper checks. We're really meant to get away from and completely replace the need to send checks altogether. There are some vendors that might say, okay, well, I'm used to checks and I've always received checks. And one of the things that Pluto does really well is it onboards those vendors, because you don't need their direct deposit info and they don't have to supply it to you outside of the system. So if you're paying a vendor, you can do it with as little as an email address. They do not have to set up an account. They don't have to do anything other than just accept the payment the first time, and then going forward, it's a direct deposit. So I know with some other systems out there, they're kind of more like legacy solutions where it kind of requires those vendors to get set up to receive electronic payments. And so for that reason, sometimes they say, no, we only accept checks, because they don't want to have to set up an account or anything. So for us, we'd never require a vendor to do that. But yeah, to answer the question, we do ACH payments. only. We don't send checks. That's something possibly we do in the future. And then for the receivable side, we have both ACH, so direct debit from customers, as well as credit card payments. So credit cards are possible for collection of payment as well.
Okay.
I'll talk a little more about this in a minute, though, because there's an interesting thing about the way we integrate with QBO. That means it kind of lends itself to having a combination of payment methods, even for those vendors that you might still send a check to.
Excellent. Okay, and now for the ignorant of us in the crowd, what is ACH? And I know I'm going to feel really silly asking that, but
it's essentially the network that that bank-to-bank payments are processed on in the U.S.
Okay.
So it actually stands for Automatic Clearinghouse, but yeah, it's basically the network through which funds go through, from one bank or one financial institution to another.
Awesome. Okay, Deborah, I hope that answered your question, and thank you. That was a great question. Now, for those in the audience that are perhaps not as familiar with Pluto, could you maybe share with us one thing that they can use it for in their own practice where they would see an immediate benefit from it?
Yeah, for sure. So basically Pluto has got, two different versions. We've got the business version, which, businesses set up and use to streamline their own payments. But then we've got the bookkeeping and accountant version, which has all of the same functionality, which is interesting, but it also has additional features for adding clients, managing clients, and some other little things to make it easier for you as a bookkeeping firm. One of the big things that you can use Pluto therefore for is managing payments for your clients. So let's say you've got a bunch of different clients. You basically, through Pluto, have access to a client dashboard. You can choose your level of involvement as far as each client. So you can kind of customize roles and all of that. So really you can kind of offer that service to your clients when it comes to managing their payables. So you can literally set up payments, have your client approve those payments, and it just becomes part of the service that you're offering to them. And Pluto makes it really easy to add that, or really easy to manage that, because you've got a client dashboard, you've got a bird's eye view into what's happening in each of the client's companies. And of course, everything is kind of automatic when it comes to the reconciliation and getting those payments approved. So very easily you can tie that into what you're already doing for your clients. I know you asked for one thing, but there's one other big thing that a lot of bookkeeping firms use Pluto for, and that's actually collecting payments from those clients. So you can set up one-time payment requests, you can set up recurring payment plans if you're doing value billing, a monthly payment plan with a client. Pluto makes it really easy to key that in and just collect payments automatically going forward. So it really helps and fits into the workflow that you might have already with those clients as well.
Cool. No, that's great. I wanted to share a short story. This morning, we met with well, we hope is going to be a new client. At this point, they're a potential new client. And it's a small family-run business. They've been in business a number of years, and they're using QuickBooks Desktop. And so we're trying to move them to QuickBooks Online. And towards the end of the conversation, the business owner asked us, well, what are, you keep talking about this ecosystem and these apps and stuff, like what can some of that stuff do? So we started telling him about some of the apps. And the one that really got his attention was Pluto. The idea that he didn't have to write checks, because when he started telling us how many checks they were writing on a monthly basis, it was quite phenomenal. So of the things we talked about, it was Pluto that got him the most excited. So thank you for that. So that was great. And we have a question here from Afsana.
Okay.
Do we as bookkeepers get to use Pluto for our own practice?
Yeah, and that's a good question. So essentially you can set up your own bookkeeping firm on Pluto. From there you can access a client dashboard with clients, but you also have access to your own Pluto dashboard for your own payables, receivables, managing other employees or other colleagues at your bookkeeping firm. You can add them as users. You can choose which clients they're part of. So it really is a tool that you can use for your own business as well when it comes to sending payments, receiving payments. so that you're not, also sending checks or wires or anything like that.
Cool. And it may also be, there may be some in the audience less familiar with Pluto, but there is no monthly subscription, right?
Yeah. So that's true. So we basically are free to set up. There's no monthly fees at all. We just charge a per transaction flat fee. So it's really just pay as you go. So it really kind of just follows the ups and downs. If you have more payments one month than another, then you don't overpay for the month where you don't have as many. So it really is just pay as you go for Pluto. And that's great for bookkeeping firms, because often you're not going to have like this huge amount of payments. You might have a few payments here or there, but at least you can, run them through Pluto and have access to the same tools. Yeah.
No, I mean, I think that's great. I mean, they can literally, set it up, try it, and, without a huge investment in it. So I think that's
absolutely. Yeah. And that's part of the reason we keep it that way, so that, especially for bookkeepers and accountants, that you want to try a product first before they refer a client and want to be experienced with it and know exactly how it works. It's really easy to get set up. It's easy to try it out as far as sending payments. And there isn't that upfront cost or upfront commitment that would otherwise kind of slow you down when it comes to control.
That's great. Yes. So Afsana, yes, it is the same for bookkeepers and accountants. It is pay as you go. So
for sure.
There you go. Check it out.
Bookkeeping accountant version's free as well. There's no difference.
Yeah, no, it's an awesome tool. I mean, I know everybody here just loves it.
Well, and I mean, the transactional cost, I mean, what's a stamp these days? I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, for sure. And even there's a study, I think Scotiabank had this study a little while ago, and it's kind of putting together the cost of physical checks. And it could be anywhere between $9 and $25 when you factor in the time required to have checks printed, signed, send them, and then go back and reconcile all of that. So it really does have a big impact on bottom line when you think about it. When you can switch to something that is $1 or less per transaction for the same thing. Yep.
No, I think it's great. We do have another question here from Deb. To send a payment, is the vendor email address all that is required?
Yes, so that is the most that you would need. If you do have their direct deposit info, of course you can enter that. But yeah, when you're sending a payment to a vendor or a client, like anybody, a company or individual that you're sending money to, as long as you've got their email address, you don't need their direct deposit info. You don't need to ask for that in advance. Pluto basically sends them an email notification, says, hey, here's a payment for this invoice. They have remittance detail, and then there's a button so that they can accept the payment by answering the security question and then entering their info. And the nice thing about that is that that's a one-time thing. So if you're going to pay that vendor again in the future, they don't have to go through that again. They don't have to accept the payment again. It's simply deposited in the same account. So it's a really easy way of getting people to accept payments and enter their info without having to ask.
Yeah, great. Okay. And maybe you've touched on this a little bit, but perhaps you could share what is Pluto's vision going forward, about where you hope to take the product and, how it can help bookkeepers, accountants, and small business owners.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we really want to make sure that the whole painful process of payments is a thing of the past. So Pluto, we're really looking to be the financial hub for small and medium-sized businesses, so that all your payments, whether you're sending, receiving, international, domestic, they can be all done from the same place. They can be done quickly, and you have full visibility into those payments so that you can make insights and decisions based on your cash flow in real time, as opposed to what happens now with kind of invisible cash flow management when it comes to checks and wires. So really, we want to make sure that all of those payments are done easily through one place as opposed to everywhere else, and that it ties perfectly into your accounting software. So our vision is that checks, wires are a thing of the past. Sorry for those people that like waiting in line at the bank. You'd have to be a pretty committed hipster to still want to go and stand in line at the bank to process the wire, I have to say. But yeah, I mean, that's our vision for Pluto is really to solve that whole problem for you.
Okay, awesome. I do have to ask, where does the name Pluto come from?
Yeah, I mean, that is a good question, and so that's something I usually refer to our CEO. I mean, but yeah, I mean, there's a few different stories. Pluto, there's a Plutus, which is god of wealth, Greek god of wealth. It's a play on the word there, and that's as far as I know.
Okay, okay, fair enough, fair enough. I follow up here, I guess, from Deb. So she's asking, and I think we've explained this a little bit. So she's asking that Pluto is just like an e-transfer then, when you want to send a payment to someone and all you have is the email address.
Essentially, yeah. So the difference there is that we don't have any limits on the size. You know, with e-transfers, they're not built for businesses. So there's limits and daily limits and weekly limits and all of that. So with us, it's really just a regular Pluto payment. It's a bank-to-bank transfer. It's a direct deposit in their account, but you can do it using an email. And so we'll facilitate making sure that that gets to their bank account through that email and allowing them to accept it. The experience for the vendor is very similar. It's pretty much exactly the same as if they were receiving an e-transfer. The difference, of course, is that it's no limits, it's same fee, and it's tied into your accounting software, just like a regular bank-to-bank transfer.
Okay, perfect. Okay, we've got a few more questions here. So can you set up Pluto to require 2 authorizations before sending payments? And I believe you can, right?
Yep, absolutely. And that's a good question. I mean, that comes up all the time. And that's a huge part of the pain when it comes to checks is getting them signed, especially if you have multiple signing authorities. So Pluto does a really good job of making sure that you can get payments approved by as many signing authorities as you would like. So you can set up multiple signing authorities. There's no additional fee for additional signing authorities. And you can even customize like an optional number of signing authorities. We work with a lot of nonprofits, for example, where you might have 3 or 4 signing authorities, but you just need 2 signatures for those payments to be considered approved. So you can set it up so that once any 2 out of 4 signing authorities approve, then payments can be processed. So that approval workflow is a big feature for us. A lot of people use that because it changes the whole game when you can get payments approved by the signing authority from wherever they are. They can be remote, they can be at home, at the office, in between, they can approve payments from a phone. So it really doesn't matter anymore where those signing authorities are.
Or you could be on a beach somewhere.
Or you could be on a beach somewhere.
Yes. I just wanted to be clear, that's all. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That happens all the time. I mean, people go on vacation, but the business doesn't stop. So, I mean, if the bookkeeper is setting up payments, you want to make sure that they're approved. So that's that's a big thing.
Okay. The questions are coming in thick and fast here now. So from Paul, please tell me that the bill payments feature is coming. Big box, hydro, gas, etc.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Yeah, so it is on its way. I can tell you that. So yeah, with utility companies, we're working on any vendor, any company or individual can be paid as long as they have a bank account. What Paul's referring to is there are some, big box utility companies, telecommunication like Rogers, where we can't quite pay them yet. It's a slightly different network, and we're actually working on that. The nice thing with Pluto is that for payments like that, if you still have to make them through the bank account, unfortunately, it's not ideal. But if you do mark them as paid in QBO, they just disappear from Pluto altogether. So it won't make your life more complicated. And with pay-as-you-go fees on Pluto, you're not paying for those. You're simply, they're not going through Pluto. But yeah, we're looking to get that to our customers really quick, really soon.
Excellent. Yeah. Another question from Deb. Typically, what is the timeline between payment being sent and vendor receiving? I bet you've never had that question before.
Yeah, no, I would have to look it up in the manual. I can't. No, so basically, and that's a good question, because with payments, it's all about timing and knowing, how long things are going to take, and also having your vendor know, when the payments are going to be in their account. So basically, there's 2 different things to think about with payment processing time. There's the regular Pluto payment, which is coming out of your bank account. There's a debit date. There's 2 business days that are required for clearing, and then we would issue the credit on the 3rd day. Rule of thumb is about 4 business days. So you can see that before payment's processed. The vendor, when they receive the email notification, they can see that as well, so they know exactly when the funds will be in their account. And then and that's for the regular. The other option is you can actually pre-fund a Pluto account. So you can pre-fund what's called Pluto Instant. It allows you to set aside funds. They will still go through that clearing process, but as long as you've set them aside, in advance, and you've got available balance, you can set up payments that are processed same day using Pluto Instant since the funds have cleared. We have companies that maintain a balance in Pluto Instant so that they can always have access to pre-cleared funds, and that way, any payments they set up are going to be there in one day. The other use case that I often bring up is, let's say you're paying all of your contractors on a Friday. You don't know how much the final invoice amounts are until Wednesday afternoon or Thursday morning. So what you'll do is you'll pre-fund it earlier in the week so that the funds are available by the time you set up the payments on Thursday morning, knowing that they'll be issued that day and they'll be in their accounts by Friday. So you've got different options. We kind of try to lay it out as clearly as possible. Yeah, but it's going to be basically like a regular EFT or any bank-to-bank transfer.
Okay. And the next one is, I guess, Deborah. What about security? If client or vendors are concerned about this, how do you handle it?
Yeah, that's a big one, obviously. I mean, we're a financial company. We process payments, and so that's obviously something we take seriously. We have, first of all, on a technical side, I'm not like a super technical person, so we have a technical white paper that goes into the security measures that we have, and usually if anybody is looking to be super diligent, then they can have access to that white paper, and it goes into detail on everything. So I'm always happy to send that to anybody. We have built within Pluto, though, a series of things or features that make your account super secure. I mean, first of all, there's a compliance process. There's certain verifications that protect you going forward as well as Pluto, but also you can set up 2-factor authentication for your account so that you wouldn't be able to sign in without a code being sent to your cell phone. You can set up multiple signing authorities so that payments can be processed without multiple approvals. So there's a lot you can do to make sure that your Pluto account is secure. And then of course, we work with all of the banks and credit unions. We work with top accounting softwares and partners like that. So through those, there's obviously the necessary audits. But yeah, all of that is in this security white paper that we can always share as well.
Great. Afsana would like if you could touch on receiving payments a little bit more, please.
Yeah, for sure. So that's a big thing. I mean, Pluto allows you to send and receive. So depending on what your need is, sometimes it's both, sometimes it's only sending, sometimes it's only receiving. Basically, you can set up a payment request. It can be one time. It can be recurring. So you can actually have recurring payment plans set up that are automatically debited. And this can still be tied into your accounting software. When you're setting up a payment request, you have 2 options now. You can either have it debited from your customer's bank account. There's even a built-in pre-authorized debit agreement that you can have that is automatically sent to the customer. They can authorize it electronically. That's really handy for those recurring payment requests, so they're automatically debited going forward. You also have the option of allowing the customer to pay through a credit card. So the cool thing about that feature is once you've enabled the ability to collect through credit card, which is as simple as going to settings and clicking enable and filling in a couple of things, you have the choice when you set up a payment request of whether or not you want to allow the customer to pay through credit or just have them pay through their bank account through debit. So you really have flexibility of the choice if there's a certain customer or just even a certain invoice that you want to collect through credit card. That makes it really easy. You just say yes, give them the option, and then it's done. But yeah, all of those receivables are going straight into your bank account. Everything is reconciled through accounting software, just like they would be through payables. Okay, great.
How do you see, look into your crystal ball a little bit now, and how do you see the role? I mean, the vast majority of our audience are bookkeepers.
Yeah.
And how do you see the role of a bookkeeper changing in the future?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's obviously changed quite a bit, even in the last few years. And so, the big thing that is changing the role of the bookkeeper, I would say, would be technology right now. So there's this wave of second generation and new technology that's available at a bookkeeper's fingertips, but also that's available for businesses themselves. So I think the role of the bookkeeper is quickly becoming that of kind of a trusted advisor who no longer needs to spend as much time on processes because there are tools to help automate, and spends more time on guiding the customer, making sure that they are set up properly with different technology to streamline their own business, and also offer more insights and help out with decisions when it comes to actually pointing the direction of the business in the right place. So I think that's the direction things are going, especially with the app ecosystem. If you look at QBO, there's so many apps out there. You can basically come to a customer or one of your clients with a tech stack that'll take care of everything, and it's all connected to QBO. It's really cool. So being an expert on that is kind of the future when it comes to the role of the bookkeeper. And again, like automation and all of this access to technology, it doesn't in any way replace the expertise and the experience of a bookkeeper. It just gives you the ability to do those things quicker and provide value in other ways. And it also gives you the freedom to build your own practice and spend more time away from the practice if you want. So it's all moving in the right direction for sure.
Okay. One question that it's come up a couple of times is, if someone wanted to learn more about Pluto specifically, do you guys do like specific training webinars? Do you do demos? Or if somebody wanted to learn more about Pluto, how would they go about that?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So basically we definitely do demos. We do a lot of webinars. So we actually have our own Pluto webinar channel. If you're a business and you're just getting started, or if you don't have a Pluto account already and you just want to learn what we're about, there's definitely webinars. Anytime that someone wants like a personalized demo though, you can always reach out to our sales team and we can set that up easily. The other thing is, and this is something that is going to be talked about a little more, is we are part of the masterclass program with QBO. And so we have a certification course. It's part of the overall masterclass course. And so if you go through that, and I know a number of AIS solutions accountants and bookkeepers have done that. So it's something that is a tool there as well for training. But yeah, I mean, we're always here to walk through those steps, and we've got like a lot of training manuals. But yeah, anytime anyone has any questions, we've got chat, we've got support line, and of course sales phone number.
Terrific. Well, this isn't really a question from Paul. It seems to be more of a testimonial, I think. Okay. You'll enjoy this one, I think, Kevin. So Paul has moved 20 accounts to Pluto in the last 2 weeks. Yes. And cannot believe how smooth it was and how well it works. And the customer support is great. So we did not pay Paul to say that. So congratulations on that.
That's great. Yeah, I know Paul, and yeah, he's been great, and obviously we love hearing that. And it also kind of speaks to some of the little things that we've done over the last 6 months to a year when it comes to just optimizing processes for bookkeepers' accounts. And that's really based on feedback directly from the bookkeepers that are using Pluto already. And so that, you can set up, 20 companies in 2 weeks and not have issues, and things can be smooth. So that's great to hear.
Good. Okay. One of the challenges for ourselves in the bookkeeping industry is the ecosystem, or the third-party app development is almost out of control. I mean, it just seems like every time you look, there's more new apps doing more new things.
Yeah.
And in one way, that's really awesome.
Yep.
But in the other way, I mean, when we make a commitment to an app, we're also our clients are putting their trust in us that we have recommended an app because we believe it's a great app, it does the job, and it's still going to be here a year from now.
Right.
What can bookkeepers do you think, to feel reasonably secure in the apps they're recommending to their clients?
Yeah, I think there's some big things to look for in doing that and choosing which apps you use. One of the big things is it or a big sign of longevity and success with an app is it actually solving like a real world problem my clients are facing. So I mean, in Pluto's example, you're actually replacing the need to send paper checks or wires. Look at a receipt capture tool. They're actually solving a problem. So there's things that you look for. If it's solving a problem, that right away answers some of that question. There's other things. Does a company work closely with other apps in the ecosystem? I mean, is it playing nicely and can it be part of like a cohesive type of ecosystem that you can give to a client and say, okay, we're using these three, streamline this whole process for you. So if those things are there, then you can be pretty confident in the success. And again, like if you see that thought leaders and other accounting firms are having success, that's a big thing. Is when your colleagues know that something works, I think you can trust that that's a real thing.
Okay, that was a great answer. We have a question too, and actually this is something I had never even thought about. So can Pluto be used as a standalone and not connected to any accounting software?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, Pluto is a standalone platform. We have tons of companies that use Pluto without an integration to their accounting software. There is tools and little features that make that really easy as well. If you're using Pluto without accounting software, of course, things aren't automatically reconciling, but we have mass upload and batch upload for payments and importing contacts and all of that. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of companies out there that might have like a specific ERP system that we don't quite integrate with. And so Pluto will still take care of that pain when it comes to, checks and wires and visibility and all of the above.
Okay, great. What do you find, what is one of the biggest mistakes or misconceptions that people have about Pluto?
Yeah, so one of the big things I see, especially when speaking with like bookkeepers and accountants, is that there's some upfront costs to Pluto, and there's a commitment, and it's not something you can easily try. And I think that comes from most things or most traditional things in the payment space, where if we're talking about a POS system, you've got to basically rip it out and put a new one in. Or if you're talking about a bank account, you're fully moving everything to a new bank and a new bundle and new structures of fees. So for that reason, I think sometimes there's this idea that there is this commitment and this upfront cost, and so that's one of the big misunderstandings, and that's a great one for me in conversation, because I can say, no, actually Pluto's free, and you don't have to switch a bank account, you don't have to do anything differently. You can set up an account and try it out, and you'll learn that how it fits in pretty simply. Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the biggest one. The big one, yeah. I think the other thing, and it kind of fits into that, is that it's not all or nothing. So, you might have a client that, actually is adamant that one of their payments is sent by check, or one of their payments is done through, a credit card, and it doesn't quite tie in. That's perfectly fine. Like Pluto, the way it works with QBO is if you make a payment and mark that as paid, that bill just disappears from Pluto as outstanding. We're not forcing you to make payments through Pluto. So if we can take care of, even just a portion of the payments that client is making, that's still going to make their life easier, streamline things, and save them money.
Okay, no, that's great. I think, if people took the time to really look at Pluto and understand what it can do for them, what it can do for their clients, it really is a no-brainer, I think. Like in our industry, I don't really understand why people wouldn't be using it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't. I mean, it just appears to make your life easier everywhere. So I don't know. But anyway, that was great.
My thoughts exactly, Steve.
Yeah. Well, somehow I thought you would agree with me on that, but you know, you're obviously, you know, very passionate about what you do, and that's awesome to see. What do you love about what you do?
Yeah, I mean, I love, and this goes back to my kind of experience with being part of my family's business. Is I do really like seeing the way Pluto can change the workflow and really solve that problem. It's actually really cool to see. That I really enjoy is hearing the feedback and the positive feedback after, you know, they've been able to change things and save money and save time. I think also the big thing that I didn't quite expect when I first started at Pluto that now I've come to know is all of the bookkeepers and accountants that I've met over the last 2 years at events, at you know, QB Connect after parties, like I've had so much fun, and I've realized what a close knit and interesting and super, you know, motivated culture it really is. And so that's been like one of the biggest things that I've enjoyed and also learned in working with Pluto.
Cool. Yeah, it really is an awesome community. I know Juliet and I were absolutely blown away by the support, the encouragement that we got during that 2 weeks of madness on social media. It was it was fantastic. I mean, we always knew it was a close-knit, supportive community,
right?
But wow, we had no idea, you know, until we saw that. So that was, you're absolutely right. It's an awesome community. So
yeah.
One of the things we are very big at is we like reading, and we particularly like reading business books.
Right.
Can you suggest a business book you read recently, or you're in the middle of reading, that you would recommend for us to read?
Yeah. You know, I actually just started a book, and this was recommended to me by one of my colleagues here at Pluto. It's called Passion Capital. It seems to perfectly fit in with what we were just talking about, actually, because it kind of focuses on, like, you know, there's intellectual capital, there's, you know, capital in the form of money, there's human capital, but like one of the things that separates people in business is the passion capital, is actually caring about what they do. And I'm not too far into it, so I don't know where this book is going, but definitely so far it seems it's pretty interesting. Good.
Well, thank you for that. You have Kevin here.
Yep.
One-on-one. Do you have any questions you would like to ask him?
Oh my goodness. Well, one of them was already asked. I mean, we too are waiting for when some other vendors, as far as the big box, that's coming. So that's an important one. And we're kind of keeping our fingers crossed. Maybe that's going to be announced at a couple of the events happening later this fall, but we shall see.
Perhaps Kevin could give us a preview. Perhaps, we won't tell anyone else, Kevin. Just, you know, if you want to share with us, we're perfectly fine.
Yeah, I really want to say that's coming very, very soon. But yeah, I mean, I know that our development team is working really hard, and part of that is actually tying into some other networks with the banks. And so yeah, it's on its way. It's one of the things that's requested a lot, and especially by bookkeepers, because it just naturally makes sense. So yeah, we're keeping you posted on that one.
Okay.
Yeah, very soon.
Great. We've got one other question here from Deborah. Other than cost, is there a major difference between Pluto and other AP apps like Bill.com?
Yeah. There's a lot of big differences, and you know, Deborah pointed out the big difference, obviously, right at the top, which is just fees. I mean, Bill.com, there's other legacy solutions. They happen to be larger platforms, and they're more expensive and it's more clunky and stuff like that. So fees is a really big one. Us being free is a huge differentiator. There's little things though as well. I mean, if we're looking just at something like bill.com, I mean, when you're sending someone a payment, the vendor has to set up an account. If you're, making payments with a variety of different methods, let's say someone makes a credit card payment through QBO, the way that the integration works, it's slightly different. It ends up creating duplicates, and it kind of forces you through their workflow. So there's little things like that really separate us and really clean up overall the process. And then again, our international payment feature is a huge one that separates us. The ability to pay someone that is not only in the US, but also could be in Germany, or you're a supplier in China, or, a vendor or a designer that is, in Australia, from the same exact dashboard using the same steps that you would pay the contractor down the street is a huge differentiator for us. So that's really why we went that direction. And with things moving the way they are with globalization, and businesses are paying people all over the place, you have access through the internet to services all over the place. It only makes sense to make sure that part of your business is easily done through Pluto as well when it comes to payments. So I'd say, a combination of those things, we do a lot better than a lot of the competition out there.
Okay. Sure.
I know one of your newer features that you brought on was the bringing on the Visa and MasterCard option.
Right.
And when I guess it first came out, kind of introduced, there was going to be a monthly fee with that. And then you kind of pulled back and said it would be 90 days free. Where's that, and what's the status of that right now? Yeah.
Well, I can say, to everybody here and for once and for all, it's there's no monthly fee for any credit cards. That is free. And we're actually even dropping the processing fee a little bit as well. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be super, super competitive, if not better than any of the others out there for collecting through credit card. But yeah, that fee is not there.
Fabulous. Okay, great news.
Okay.
No problem.
Sorry, did you have?
No, you can go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to say we've had a couple of people ask, I guess, who weren't here right at the beginning of the webinar. Who is this lovely woman sitting here? I presume they're not talking about me. So anyway, for those of you who did miss it and have not met her, this is Andrea Hawkins, and she is our account supervisor here at AIS Solutions. And she's a big fan of Pluto and is also certified, certifiable or certified in Pluto, sorry. And so we thought it would be kind of fun to have her on here, and she's done a great job. So that's who it is anyway. So the other thing I wanted to mention too for everyone, if you want to stay informed, up to date, what's going on, with Pluto, connect with them on social. They're on Twitter, Pluto Inc. They're on Facebook, and they're pretty active on social media. And it's a great way to, stay up to date with what's going on. So just, thought I'd throw that out there. And is there any last questions before we wind this up?
One thing I just wanted to mention before the end here is we have a promo code specifically for Kninja Knetwork and listeners today, and that'll be the word Kninja 17. That'll get you 25 free transactions for any newly added company. So if you do have clients that are waiting to be added to Pluto, or if you're going to be adding them in the next little while, that promo code can be used to get them started with 25 free transactions. So that is Kninja 17. If anyone has any other questions or anything about that specifically, just reach out to me and I can get you set up. But Kninja 17 is going to be for anybody that is getting started.
Okay. We are being asked, are there any spaces or capital letters in that promo code?
No.
Okay. And of course,
all lowercase.
Okay. And of course you have spelled Ninja correctly, right? With a K?
Yes.
There is no other way to spell it, right?
No,
with a K.
no.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's fantastic, Kevin. Thank you very much. That's a great offer for everyone. I mean, if it wasn't a no-brainer before to give it a try, I certainly think that it is now. And it looks like the questions we've taken care of. I don't know. I will ask. Can we have Kevin's contact info?
Yes, for sure. So I can be reached anytime at kevin@pluto.co. That's kevin@pluto.co. I don't think .com gets to me, so please don't send it there. Yeah, but kevin@pluto.co. I'm basically available anytime to hop on a call or answer any questions that you have.
Okay, terrific. I have to ask. You know what the question's going to be? .co, not .com. Please explain.
So actually, Pluto.com is the I think my email is going to be switched pretty soon, but
okay.
Yeah, Pluto.co is for me, but you can type whatever you want in.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you. And thank you very much for giving up your time today, Kevin, and sharing all of your knowledge. You've been a fantastic guest. It's always nice to have someone who is also entertaining. You're entertaining. So if you ever want to take a different career path, I think there's some potential there for you. So thank you. Thank you, everyone, for attending. And hopefully we will run into you either next week at QB Connect in San Jose, or if not there, at QB Connect in Toronto. So take care. Thank you, and have an awesome day, everybody. Take care.